Yes, Annie's here. I'm going to read Annie's incredible bio for a quick second. I'll keep it quick. But Annie's a first-generation Asian American who grew up in Vietnam, Taiwan, and Hong Kong before immigrating to the States at age 11, where she started learning English as her fourth language with the help of American subtitled films. She started her entertainment career in marketing and later pivoted to into creative development, a decision led by her passion for filmmaking. And Annie has over 6 years of experience working in creative development, film production, and marketing strategy at Warner Brother Pictures, Universal Pictures, 20th Century Fox, CBS Studios, and Sony Pictures. And she's a member of the inaugural class of the American of Motion Picture Arts Gold Program, a Forbes 30 Under 30 Scholar, WIF Fellow, woohoo, a Soho House X Creative Futures Fellow, and an API ASF NBC Universal Award recipient. Annie spends her free time producing independent projects with writers and directors from across the globe, hoping to one day produce content that transcends language and culture and encompasses everything that she values as a filmmaker. So that's a long accomplishment list. Sorry to put you through that, but I think it's great for people to know, what other parts of your career you've been building over the years. And then when we asked Annie to show some of her work, she was really excited to invite her collaborators with us tonight. So we have producers and writer-director of both of those. We have Jessica. Yeah, you can come on up. Jessica is a writer-director of Better Life. And Danny here. Danny is a co-producer with Annie on Dasher. Thank you guys so much for coming. Incredible work, all of you, on all of these films. It's really exciting to talk about them, and I have some really specific questions for everyone because I was very interested in making sure we can, what's the knowledge that y'all want to know from making short films, and especially short films that have such a human-centered stories, I think is something that I noticed and when talking to Annie about at the beginning, and for you guys too. I was really taken with the personal aspect of each of those and how they were made so much fun. I think my first question for you guys is, what was your favorite shot in any of those films? Your own film or the other?
Well, hi everyone. So happy to be here. As you can see, I'm a little squirmish because I'm not very used to like self-promo stuff. Usually I'm a producer, so I'm like behind, the camera. But it's nice to learn how to kind of take ownership of your work and celebrate it, I guess. So anyway, happy to be here. I guess Jess here is our director for Better Life, so the first short that we screened. And then Danny here is a co-producer with me on Dasher, the second film that we screened. And then in terms of a favorite shot for Better Life, I feel like Gao, who's the dad in it, he is so funny that when we were shooting it, I was laughing behind every single take. So I feel like the shot of him running with the money bag and the money flying around is really funny, because we shot it on a moving car in an alleyway, and I had to be like in the middle. I remember like between the car and him to tell him when to go. But then once we started rolling, I had to run with the car, so I'm not in the shot. So I think, yeah, I know it's the crazy behind movie making. But that's my favorite shot for Better Life. And then for Dasher, I feel like Hawaii is so picturesque. I really love just like seeing the scenery. But I think my favorite shot is definitely the last one of Viv, who's the actress in it. Just her singing and like the bar environment. It was a really cool speakeasy that we found, and just like the vibe. And we'll go into this later, but that was like our third day of shooting, or fourth day, or like second to last day of shooting, and we didn't anticipate on ending the film there, but the writer and director were on set with us, and we rewrote the ending.
right.
Yeah, and so because there's supposed to be a whole other scene after that, but we felt like that shot was so powerful that we wanted to end on it, and so there was a lot of scrambling for me after, but it was a good creative decision to have been made.
Yeah, that was one of my questions for you guys, was how did you end up making that decision? So if there's more of that story, we'd love to hear it. I think it was really cool when reading the script. There's a different scene at the, I mean, it's not a totally different scene, but there's like more like some character development that happens in between there. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so in the script originally, the one that Danny and I developed, we were supposed to have this like ending scene of them two on the beach, and they're supposed to reflect on the night and like essentially have the kind of conversation that's about like their dreams, and then like how hard it is to be like working people in Hawaii, to, you know, working the gig economy culture, and, you know, it being so touristy and stuff. It's just hard for people who are actually from there to have dreams. And so we wanted that last scene to encompass that. But when we were shooting it, we were like, it doesn't feel very good for us to explain to the audience what they should be feeling and thinking or like learning from it. And so we felt like it would have been felt, you know, seeing her sing, because it was something that she, you know, was holding so tightly on to. Yeah, anything else to add?
I was just gonna add, I think partly that creative decision also came from like the identity of the actor we ended up casting, because it was originally written for the role of like a native Hawaiian, but Taimua is like Samoan and Chinese, and so it didn't resonate as strongly, sort of that ending on the beach scene. So we wanted to kind of tweak it to be more like reflective of his point of view, bringing it into the character. And it also saved us a company move at 3 a.m. to the beach. So that was great.
Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah, exactly. My next question for you guys is something quite like logistical like that, which I'm so curious about, to know how you all got those locations and the permits and all of those different restaurants. Were they all different restaurants? Like, and also about shooting on location. Did you always know, like, was the story based in Hawaii?
Yes. So essentially, yeah. So how the story came about is that Danny and I came together and decided that we would want to make a short together. And so we were taking all these meetings, and Alex, our director, was introduced to Danny through a mutual friend. And so we took a meeting with him, and at that point, he didn't have a script yet. It was just an idea. He was like, I'm from Hawaii. I really want to make a story about where I live, and I just have this idea. And we were like, cool, we like the idea. Because the idea was about a food delivery driver, and we really, really like it. And this is, I guess, not part of the story. You tell your sister part.
Yeah, well, my sister's from Hawaii. She's been a resident there for like over 8 years, and she works in the hospitality industry. So when Alex first pitched this, it had like a very kind of personal connection to me as well, and just trying to showcase Honolulu and Hawaii through a light that's not through the lens of tourism was really appealing. Like, he pitched it as a love letter to the city, and we got to really explore locations that aren't places that someone would go to if they were just there to do sort of the typical tourist activities. And so that's something that we really wanted to shed a light on.
Yeah, and kind of to answer your question, Tony Marie, on the technicality of the locations, it was over like 50 different. I don't know. I'm ballparking it.
It was a lot of locations.
It was a lot of locations.
We had like a lot of personal contacts, like through our director. A lot of the owners of the restaurants were like personal favors.
Yeah.
A lot of the houses, like one of the shots was like my sister's apartment and like family's apartment.
Yeah.
And, like, our actors' like family home. So we were able to utilize a lot of like that. But I think the biggest location challenge was honestly the speakeasy. Because we wanted to find somewhere that you could have a sushi bar, that you could have karaoke, and it was like one of the last places we scouted, but it had such a unique look that we were like, we need to get it.
Yeah, and Danny and I are not from Hawaii, so we're here, and we originally was thinking about like hiring kind of like a line producer in Hawaii, and it's a very small island, and so there aren't that many, especially because we have never filmed there before. We didn't have any crew there. We didn't really know anyone aside from the writer and the director, and so the first time we went to scout it, we were meeting people for the first time, and so it was really just like me calling all these restaurants from LA. And I think they thought I was living there, or, but over the course of calling all these places and being like, really want to shoot this, it's about this, it's a love letter to the island, people were super receptive. And I think that just speaks to the energy and the vibe of Hawaii. And I think I really learned that by the end of it, because everyone was just so willing to help us. Most of the locations allowed us to shoot for free. We didn't make it for a lot of money. Yeah. And over the course of making this film, I got to meet so many like restaurant owners and like just like local business people in Hawaii. And now so that eventually led to, on my last day there, I was flying out of Hawaii, and my luggage, as always, is overweight, and it was overweight by 10 pounds. And normally I can get away with like a couple, by being like, but then I learned from all the people in Hawaii that like, I just have to go up to the person and call them either auntie or uncle. A local knowledge, but I do not gatekeep. So I go up to the TSA agent, and I was like, auntie, like, come on. And she was like, okay, fine. So anyway, that was really the benefit of shooting away. Yeah.
Forever calling people auntie. Yes. It's just the vibe. Exactly. Respectfully. And yeah, it's kind of leading me, hearing you both talk about your process together and how the project came to be. It's reminding me about wanting to chat with both of the teams in kind of a separate answer, because Annie, I'd love to know how you work with Jessica being the writer-director, and how you make those creative choices together versus maybe having a wider team, like having a different writer-director for Dasher, as opposed to the single writer-director. Like, what are both of those processes like? Are they different?
Yeah. Well, Jess, why don't you tell us a little bit about how it was working with me?
Sure. Yeah, so Annie definitely didn't blackmail me to say nice things. But no, yeah, it's definitely been a really great collaboration, I would say. It's just something that kind of happened organically. Like, we were introduced by another director friend of mine and a mutual that worked with Annie on another project. And, we had like a general meeting and just started talking about like, I was talking about some of the projects that I was developing at the time, and kind of like, the tone and my visual style as well as storytelling style, and shared with her some of my past works. And we just, got into conversation about like better life. And it's something that really, I think, it's always like the right time in the right place. And I think this was one of those connections. Like, once we started working together, things kind of just started falling into place. Like, of course, Annie put in so much work, and we have been collaborating back and forth, like from everything, like, once the script was written, she would give me notes, and like, just kind of being part of the entire process. I really appreciated that, and kind of really understanding my vision and like what types of actors I would like to work with. And for me, like, the tone is really important, because it's like a fine line between, dark comedy and tragedy and all of that. And I think she was able to understand that. So that was a great foundation. And even like the funny thing, like when you guys were talking about, locations, one of the things that happened that was very magical was like, our main location, the incense supply shop. Like, that's a very specific location. It has to have a certain production design, all these things. And I had written the story based off of my one of my relatives growing up owned a shop. and I wrote it like with that location in mind. And then Annie actually like, and our other associate producers, they found that shop without me telling them, and it's literally the shop that my uncle owned back in my childhood. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
And I guess to answer, your question about working with a writer-director versus working with a writer and a director. When I met Jess, I was like, honestly, I really hate working with writer-directors. I would rather have two people do the work than having one person do all of the work, because when it gets to filming, it gets so hard because there's rewrites, and I'm like, as a director, I need you to like decide all these things with our HODs, and then but you also need to do rewrites and things like that. So I think it definitely speaks to Jess's ability to multitask, because being a writer director is so hard, and I'm sure some of you are writer directors and you're like, yep, yeah, I get it. And then or producers working with writer directors, because it is such a daunting task to carry the weight of like all the creative, and then working with our writer Bryson and director Alex on Dasher. It's not easier, I would say, because then there's like creative differences, and then there's people's bandwidth, and Bryson was coming off of Moana 2 at the time, and so he was super busy already, but this was the passion project of his, and it's a very different process, and it's just learning how to work with the filmmakers that you work with.
That was a personal passion question for me, because I just am curious about what are the ups and downs of each of those projects, because it's a different role for you as a producer, for you both as producers, to be working with different people, and then it seems very shepherding Jessica's vision through that in Better Life. And speaking of the actors in Better Life, I'm sure other people are wondering, like, can you break it down for us? How do you get an A-lister to commit? How does it affect the schedule, the budget, all of that?
Yeah, for sure. We're really grateful for Randall's support in the short. He's really, really great. So it came about really because Jess is in this program called the Alliance of Women Directors, plug. And yeah.
Oh, well, it's the Rising Directors Fellowship. Yes.
Within the organization. And so at the time she got paired up with a mentor, and that was Randall, but he wasn't cast in the short or anything. We were just starting to talk about the short. Yeah. And I was like, you know what an opportunity it is if you were to ask him for, just feedback. For feedback, just creative feedback, no title, on the short, as a mentor, slowly roping someone in.
Just testing the waters.
Randall, I hope you are not watching this. So yeah, kind of like allowed him to be part of the creative process from the beginning, got a lot of creative guidance from him, at which point I then was like, Jess, I think maybe we would want him in the short, just as and then she was like,
right, yeah. I mean, I was also thinking, because I personally admired him and his journey, so I chose him as a mentor, and we kind of started developing a great, rapport, and like he was already giving me support and notes, and I was, it just kind of clicked, like, oh, he should play something he hasn't really done before, like this kind of mysterious, is he evil or not doctor, so that was like something that I think could be enticing to someone that is established, like playing something they haven't had the chance to. So that was one of the thought processes.
Yeah, there was definitely an opportunity there, because we got this direct line with someone who you normally would have to like work through managers or agents and things like that, and you would kind of get like blocked behind that wall. And so I think a good way in was to kind of ask for creative feedback first, so that they feel like they're a part of the process, which he is, and then asking if he would participate in the film as one of the characters, which he then agreed to. And then to answer your question about scheduling, it was really, really, really difficult because he is incredibly in demand.
He's booked and busy.
And busy. And so I was moving forward with the short as if he is doing it, but having a backup plan because we did not confirm his schedule until 3 days before shoot.
It was crazy.
Because he was flying to, I want to say Toronto, Canada.
Yeah.
So I was figuring out flights with his manager and like if he had to go, because he was also waiting to hear. So I was also working with the producers on the TV show that he was shooting to figure out the schedule to see when he could fly in and out and, back to work, things like that. So luckily it all worked out because he ended up flying out for the show after our shoot. So he lives here. So luckily we didn't, because we would have to pay for, travel. So always having like a backup plan, contingency plan. It's always good.
Yeah, he definitely, was just really great and worked with us, and it was a bit stressful, but I think that's just what happens when you work with, someone of a large caliber.
Yeah, because I will say, like, having him on really helped the project in terms of, like, us getting the financing and attaching the rest of the cast, right? Like, so having that soft attachment definitely helps, like, a project, come to life in a way. And so without him, having that concrete attachment until literally the shoot day, it still really helped us. And so, if you guys are working with like A-list stars, I would try to utilize that in other ways than just having them on. And that's why we're able to have such an amazing cast too, because Peggy was coming, the nosy neighbor lady just came off of Venom, right? So she's Mrs. Chen in Venom. Shirley just came off Dee Dee. And then Terry was on Never Have I Ever. So yeah, it's a really, really great cast. And when you're doing a story like this and you're honest about like what you're trying to do, I think everyone kind of like agrees that, I want to be a part of this because of the fellow cast member that I also know, especially in the AAPI community. And so that really helped us with like budget. Ultimately.
Yeah, that's obviously like the big looming question is like, okay, but how do we pay for that to happen? But that's great that it like keeping it in the family in a way and keeping it connected was part of making it come alive. Yeah. That's always part of I think the thing that we hear a lot in some of our other programs is from producers and entertainment lawyers that having the talent is always like a catch-22. And it's a delicate dance, definitely. Do any of you have other stories in relation to those kinds of things?
I know, off-script question. I think that it was really hard, right? Not knowing his schedule, especially because we cast everyone based on him being involved in the film. So as a producer, oftentimes I feel like I'm a scam artist because it's so chicken and the egg. Like people are not going to say yes if you don't have this, but you kind of have this, but you don't really have it unless you have that. So you really are like in the middle trying to balance all the realities that are not realities yet. So I think that was the part where I was like literally the week before shoot, I was sitting there like, if he can't come to this, like, what am I going to say?
I feel like we were just like believing it would happen. We
were like praying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think having a contingency plan definitely helps. But do you have a funny story?
You mean related to casting or?
Yeah.
I mean, not really a funny story, but I think like, the main character of Richard Richard Yang, who played Gal the dad. He's just so like
Jimmy's dad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's Jimmy O Yang's dad, the comedian. But yeah, I mean, he's just like so sweet and so like just exactly like his character, and he would like take us out to dinners and stuff, and like like family dinners, you know, with like the large spinning Chinese restaurant style. So that was pretty cool. And I think just like, you know, even though people may have like their like name talent or something, I feel like there is a part of like if they connect well with the story and they really see like, okay, you know, you guys know what you're doing, you may not have a huge budget, but we're going to be very professional, respect your time, take it seriously. And yeah, everyone like really bonded, and I think the cast also just became like one happy family, which was really nice.
I made them make a lot of TikToks with me because I am a Are you? I'm not on TikTok. I just like making the TikToks for me to have. Yeah. But I have private accounts. I don't make TikTok.
Yeah, that little TikTok move in Dasher came from you, or your knowledge about TikTok dances?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I taught the dad that dance move, and actually, like as we were filming, I was like down on the floor, like reminding him of the dance moves off camera. So yes. You were on point.
I caught it. Oh man, short films. It's the best. And it's also kind of an intense time for short films and indie creators. And I'd love to know, for you, all of you, how do you feel about festivals, distribution? There's a lot of like distribution platforms right now, like Kinema and Jolt and some of these other digital, like for like to replace streamers or to like supplement that kind of lack of distribution for people who have smaller budgets. I'm curious, just, you know, personally to yourself, what's the success look like for your short films in the future, from where you stand right now?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough time for the industry right now. I was just curious, like, are everyone filmmakers here? Producers? Directors? There we go. Writers? Yeah, so other kinds of filmmakers. Yeah, you guys know, like, it's tough out here. But, like, I think because I come from, like, a studio background, so I work for the big bad wolf. So like that's mostly of my experience, and then making indie stuff helps keep me sane in like working in this really dire industry, as you all know. But something that I really learned from my studio experience is that like we have to learn how to make indie sustainable for all of us, otherwise you can't keep doing it, right? You can't keep directing, you can't keep producing. And so like, how do we get there? And I feel like something that I always tell indie filmmakers that I first meet, like I told you when I first met you, I was like, you can't keep making indie films forever. Sorry, Sean Baker. Well, you know, you can make films in the spirit of independent films, but I really think that like as indie filmmakers, you know, you're out there making shorts for the first time or for the fifth time. I think you have to be really intentional about it being your last. And that's what I told Jess. I was like, instead of making 100 kind of okay shorts, let's make the one you really want to make and then stop making it after that. I mean, I'm sure it'll come up later in life, you'll want to make shorts. But I think if you want to build a career for yourself, making the best short possible that you are able to at the time, and then using that to make longer form projects, because that's where you want to end up. And it's really hard, right? It's easier said than done, because where are you going to find the money for that? And that's why having collaborators is so helpful. Yeah, and having organizations that support you, like Women in Film, WIF. Yeah, so I think like, you know, as we're looking towards the future of our careers, even though the industry is so dire, kind of looking inward and seeing like, what can I make to the best of my ability now? And that it has to represent me as a filmmaker, all that it encompasses in this one project, which is, so
Oh yeah,
really
I mean,
hard.
also, Better Life is a proof of concept. So
Yes.
there is that element to it. Like, it will be expanded. So I think, like Annie said, spending your time to make the best thing you can, and it would be helpful if it's something that's part of a larger project.
Yeah. And I think that just speaks to the kind of mentality that I think I like want most people to have, is like making your indie stuff and then strategizing, because strategizing is not really kind of selling out your art, right? You're trying to figure out how to make it sustainable for yourself. And so kind of strategizing, like, how is this going to get me from point A to point B? And then from point B, once Jess is short plays in festivals, we're meeting financiers. Like, we're already meeting financiers now for the feature. So like kind of consistently thinking about the next step so that you can provide for yourself. Because I'm really lucky and I'm only able to make indie stuff because I have a full-time job. And so I want to acknowledge that. And I feel like most people do, in order to make indie stuff. And so you don't want to keep making the indie stuff forever. So how do you turn that into a job that can be sustainable for the rest of your life? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's like every project try to level up in some way, when you're starting shorts.
How about you, Danny? Any thoughts there?
I mean, I was just gonna say for Dasher, I would say the intention behind that is like supporting Alex's vision as a filmmaker who by day he spends a lot of time doing commercials work, and he was in the Disney Launchpad program, I think a couple years ago, and it had been a beat since he had done narrative. So this was sort of, his first foray in a while into doing something in the narrative space, and so we as producers really wanted to support that vision. And again, for him, that's like, I don't want to speak for him, he's not here, it's like sort of continuing what he wants to do in his career. And I think seeing that really resonated with us too, and this being a passion project for him that also had that intention behind it.
Yeah, thank you guys for going off script for me and answering the questions. I just there's sometimes when you come to the panels, the questions can be so hard to answer and so hard to craft because everything is different. Every route of getting somewhere is completely different. So hopefully, when we get into the organic part of like, this is the next thing that's interesting to talk about up here, it gives folks something to think about. And we are still good with I still have 2 more questions. And then audience questions? Good on. I'm looking at you, Maria. I'm sorry. Okay, never mind. Okay. My question, I have a career question, but do y'all have questions? How many questions we have? Let's start here and then I'll wrap it up after.
I forgot I had a name tag. I'm like, oh my God, she knows my name. Hi, thank you for sharing your wonderful work with us. My question is for you because I am in the Soho Creative Futures Fellowship right now. I am a writer, producer, actress, and I did wrap my short film. It turned out well because I surrounded myself with people that know what they're doing. My question for you is next steps with the financiers. How did you connect with them? Was that through another fellowship? And then second part, hopefully, I'm trying to figure out the best way to utilize my Creative Futures fellowship. So if you could speak on that, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
So to answer your financier question, I'm also figuring it out as I go, but I think that's the part that makes the most difference in all of the filmmakers' lives. Because if you ask Jess, she would not have an answer for you because creatives. But as a producer, I always have to think about money. And it's funny because I'm not like a well-connected person at all. Like my family immigrated here. My mom still works as a server, so like I have no industry connections. I got my first job in the studio system. Literally by applying to 100 different jobs, and I only got it because the person who originally rejected the offer. So, you take every opportunity you get. Yeah, I started an intern in the studio system at Warner Brothers, but that's after having done a series of like weird internships at like law firms and architectural firms and like random stuff. So it wasn't like my first one. But that was my first entryway. Sorry to segue. But as someone who has absolutely no connections in the industry, my goal is to become the industry Nepo baby. And I think the best way to do that is to work really hard and make sure that people know you for how hard you work. And so they will speak well on you everywhere you go. And after that job, I haven't applied for a job online since then because it was like from person to person to person. And how that relates to financing is that you'd be surprised by your own connections in your own circle now. You might not see them as potential financiers, and I'm not saying to go ask your friends and family for your Kickstarter because, that's also really hard, and I'm sure we've all been there before. But just like I think people in your circle who you should kind of spend time getting to know, and then getting to know their circles and what spaces they occupy has really helped me. Meeting people who like let's say a direct friend and they know people working in equity or finance or tech, that spaces I'm not in. Right? But I'm sure we all have friends and family who know other people, or maybe even another degree of difference, and kind of like getting to know them that way. I've had a lot of luck meeting people in the nonprofit space as well, because supporters of nonprofit spaces often have money. So you think about where money is being put into, and you go in those directions, starting with your own personal network has been really helpful. And how we have found a lot of luck in getting financing for Better Life is that I've been attending a lot of film festivals, as Maria and you guys know, because they first I went to Sundance, and it's really expensive to go to these film festivals, but thanks to WIF support, who funded my South by Southwest pass, which is like $4,000. Crazy, right? But someone, a fellow once said to me, because I was like, oh my gosh, like they gave me this pass that they had, and I'm going to South by, which I had no intention of going whatsoever. And she was like, the squeaky wheel gets I forget the saying, but squeaky wheel gets the oil? Gets the whatever. Basically, if you don't speak up and ask for it, you're not going to get it. Because I was headed to South by, and then they sent out an email and was like, is anyone going to South by? And I was like, hey, like I'm thinking about going because my friend is a juror, and he got his hotel room paid, so he said I can tag along. I don't have a pass, so if you guys have events, I'll show up, like unofficial ones. And Maria was like, well, guess what? So got a pass, went to all the parties, went to all the events, met random people. I ended up meeting such random people working in tech and stuff that I was doing pitches in hotel lobbies. And I was like, I've never seen these people before. I can't get kidnapped because it's in a hotel lobby full of people. And I had like the hotel print out these like really old fashioned like folders, like the clear folders with like printouts of like all my decks. You should always be ready. Yeah, that's why I'm like, because you never know when the opportunity strikes, right? So I have all the PDFs, even though I like had, just like update stuff as I'm like on the ground. And so printed out all my projects, went and pitched to random people where it makes sense, and came back with a lot of interest. So, I hope that answers the first part of your question, because I honestly, I was sitting there, I've never done anything like that before. Never met these people before, don't know what they're like. But having different interests help, because people always make fun of me for weirdly liking football. You'd be surprised, because I'm like, well, most people who work in tech are like older white men, and I'm gonna learn about football. True. So football or golf or tennis, that always helps. So spend a lot of time talking about sports. And then by the end of it, they're like, I just have a good feeling about you. And I'm like, I'm like, oh, I
Yeah,
wonder
totally.
why, because I'm like speaking like you. So having different interests help, like, and then getting into conversations with people, not directly with what you are asking for, but just in genuinely getting to know them, and their interests. And honestly, like the best way to showcase your personality and your ability is to talk about other stuff. Like he was weirdly impressed by my knowledge about fantasy football, that he was like, you must be a capable producer, because if you can run a fantasy football team.
Wow. Nice.
So yeah. And then second part of your question, maybe we'll chat after.
Okay, yeah. Good point. I have one more question back here.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Beatrice. First of all, thank you for the wonderful stories. It was really nice to see everything. I'm a writer-director, and I have a question for you. So as a producer for both of you, do you like to be involved with the project from the beginning, like from the very concept? Because I feel like both of those projects you were invested very early on. Or do you like to be brought on afterwards? What is your favorite approach?
I mean, for me, like one of my favorite parts is working on the development process, on the script. So kind of buying into the concept at an early stage and really working closely with the talent on that is something that I personally really resonate with, and finding that idea or world or like characters that I really, want to like work with throughout the process. A short or a film can take many, many years, and I think you want to invest in it just as that creative is investing in it. So that would be my point of view, but I'll pass it
Yeah. Sorry, what was the question? I'm like losing brain cells. Oh, yeah, I always say, because we started in the ideation stage, I always say I want to be involved from the very, very beginning, because you can really, as a producer, take ownership of the project. That way, I've definitely been hired on as producers for hire, in which case, like, the script's already been done. Usually it's like through an organization, things like that. So I've produced one for Netflix, and that was like for hire. And those are always helpful because, you get paid. Like, jobs are important. But that then also it gives you visibility to be connected with people who you're working from day one on. But I think just know as producers, like if you work on day one with someone, it's just a lot more work that you have to put into developing it to a good, point where you can take it into production. So yeah.
Thank you.
Nice. Oh, we have some questions.
Hi, my name is Amanda. Thank you for all the information you gave me today. Just continuing on the question that she gave, I have a question regarding what you said and joining from the development.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with a director or have a situation where, let's say, you had to rely on you to do the development, or a situation where someone that didn't have all the control, like you had to do all the creative part, and how will you do in a situation like that?
Yeah. So are you asking in terms of like if the writer director didn't want to do the development, or?
Yeah, kind of. You wanted to join it, and you ended up doing all the work for them. You ended up doing all the
Yeah, I mean,
on you.
I think like aside from the actual writing, you as a producer, you would be doing all of the creative development with them. Yeah, because you're not writing the script. I mean, you shouldn't really make this creative decisions that the director would make, in terms of like, but you should always be alongside them, because with Jess, like, definitely made all the production design and like costuming, casting decisions alongside her. But in terms of creative development, yeah, I would say that's a really big part of producing. And if you're the only producer on, you would be doing all of the creative development.
I mean, in a case in which a director would not do his job and leave all to you to do it, his own job. How would you handle with a director like that?
I mean, this is what I always say. Directors are my employees. I was like, remember that. Because in the real business sense, studio sense even, directors are hired. We replace directors all the time. We replace writers all the time. That's why the producer gets the Best Picture award, because they are the ones who make the film and produce the project. And so if you're ever in a scenario where you're like, they're not doing their job, Danny and I have worked with so many writers before we made the short that is Dasher, because we were supposed to have made that short like a couple years back with, you know, the funding that we got, like a grant that we got. And then it ended up not working out. And you keep looking for new ones. So yeah, you can very much fire people. You're so lucky that I never did.
Did you want to add to that question? Okay, I'm getting the flag down. I'm sorry, I'm getting the flag. That was our last question for the night. But we do have a few. We are wheels up out of here at 9:00. So you might see us bumping around, packing up. But feel free to chat, mingle, drink some drinks. Those are all for you guys. So. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Become a WF member if you want. Thank you for all of you guys for all of your work, your thoughts, your time, your energy.